Hey everyone, I'm Wesley. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to maintain a motorcycle chain and how to check for safety issues. When you're dealing with the motorcycle chain, there's three main things that you need to look for when you're maintaining it. About every 6 months you need to check and make sure that your chain is well lubed. That way it flows really good and it's not as loud when you're riding down the road. The second thing you need to look for is you need to make sure that it's not too loose. If it's too loose, it can actually cause it to bounce and hit your frame, which can sometimes cause it to snatch off and cause major issues. The third thing you want to look for is you have a sprocket that makes your chain spin. It actually drives your chain. It's got little teeth that catch inside of the chain and make it spin. You want to make sure those teeth aren't bent. They should always be straight. And if those teeth get bent, that can also mess up your chain or also throw it off sometimes. So where we're going to start is we're going to check and make sure that the chain's not too loose. You're going to do that by getting down here at the chain and you're going to push on the chain. If your chain's too loose, you should actually be able to push it and make it touch the frame. Right now I can actually push it as hard as I can with all my weight, and it's still got about a 1/2 inch clearance between the chain and the frame. That's about perfect. If it was any looser, we would want to break this bolt loose back here and actually stretch the chain, or move the sprocket back, which would stretch the chain, making it tighter. The second thing we want to check for is, like I said, you want to make sure those teeth on your sprocket aren't bent. And you can only see about 25% of the sprocket right here. So check what you can where it's at, and then you can actually get on the bike and move it back and forth, and that'll make more of your sprocket visible. So you got to make sure your bike's in neutral. Move it back just enough to where you can see more of the sprocket. See, right now your sprocket's actually turned, so I can see more of it. And I can see that none of my teeth are bent. They're also not ground down or anything, so they're still in good shape. So right now we've checked about half of the sprocket. So we're going to get back on the bike and move it forward some more, making more of the sprocket visible. See, right now I can see another probably 25% of my sprocket. And I can see that it's not bent. None of the teeth are getting ground down and sharpening, so all of those are still in good shape. So now to check the last little part of the sprocket, we're going to get back on the bike and move it up just a little bit more. And that should make all of the sprocket visible. Get down and, as before, just check, make sure none of them are bent, none of them are ground down. Sometimes they'll also actually ground down into a fine tooth instead of a wide tooth, which makes it rattle on the chain a little bit because there's not as much surface area to hold that chain steady. But so far everything looks good on the sprocket. It doesn't need to be changed or fixed or anything. So we're going to get back on it and move it back to where we had to begin with. And now we're going to check and see if the chain's dry, if it needs to be lubed or anything. Because if it doesn't have enough lube, like I said, it can make it louder, it can cause it to rust. And a motorcycle chain is actually an O-ring chain. It's got O-rings inside the chain, and that lube helps keep those O-rings nice and moist. If those get dry, it'll cause the O-rings to break, which will make your chain go bad quicker. So we're just going to get down and feel it. It shouldn't be really greasy, but it should have a little bit of lube on it. And it actually feels really dry, so we're going to add some lube to it. What we're going to add to it is, it's just regular old white lithium grease. It's perfect to lube up a motorcycle chain. It's not too greasy, but at the same time it's greasy enough that it lubes it up really good. And the same thing as with our sprocket. You can't get all of it from one spot, so we're going to start with what we can see now. And we're just going to spray a light coat of this grease all the way down the chain. And you got to be careful not to get it on your tire, because obviously it's greased, so it'll cause your back tire to slip if you get it on it. And you can see a lot more of the chain than you could the sprocket from where it's at, because it's a lot more open. The frame's not blocking it. So we'll probably only have to move it twice instead of 4 or 5 times to be able to get all of it. So we're going to get back on the bike and move it forward so we can see more of the chain to lube it up. And this grease, when you spray it on, it's actually white, so you can see it's very obvious what you've already sprayed and what you haven't. And I can see that right here is where I stopped when I sprayed earlier. So I'm going to start from that same spot and work my way back and hit the parts that I hadn't already greased. So we're going to move it back one more time just to make sure that we were able to get all of the chain. We don't want to leave any of it ungreased. And see, now I can see where I started the first time right here, and then I can also see where I stopped the second time right here. So I've got about a 1 foot gap of chain that hasn't been greased. We're just going to hit that spot and we'll be good to go. And we're just going to rock it back and forth a couple of times just to work that grease in good. It'll work it into the chain and also work it into the sprocket. You want both of them to stay well lubed. And that should be good right there. And that's all there is to maintaining a motorcycle chain. Like I said, 3 main things. You just want to make sure it's not too dry. You want to make sure it's not too loose, and you want to make sure your sprocket's in good shape. It's not ground down, not bent, no teeth are broke off. But other than that, that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching, guys.